Yeah, in fact, what we were discussing, about the Kashmir, and in fact, come to the point, in fact, about the politics which happened right from that of the princely and state, and also the internal politics really involving that of the Diwan, and also that of the prime ministers, and also Sheikh Abdullah being a factor on one side. And another thing is that of the Indian government, that is Nehru, and also Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and other side being the Pakistan, right? In fact, Jinnah was playing a tactical game. Now, in this aspect also, another factor which comes in, that of the Mountbatten factor. And over there, in fact, when he was actually going off, he made a very precarious, particularly one of the most precarious end to this particular chapter. That is the 565 vassal states or the princely states. They have either the property to join Pakistan or India, both of the dominants. They have the choice, barring the central provinces and United Provinces and the other provinces which are directly ruled by in fact, the assemblies which actually were there. Now, in this particular aspect, Jinnah played a major role in terms of, giving out the gusto in Galler, and also in terms of rolling out freebies or giving the blank check. One of them was definitely Jodhpur, which is actually has been recorded. Second is that, again fathoming travel out there in Junagadh, and Hyderabad, coming out as the travel shooter from the very within that of the state. And also one of the most contentious issues, in fact, it became with that of the Jammu and Kashmir. Now, if I talk about one by one, that how do you think the Junagadh issue was actually solved? In fact, I'll be definitely coming down to Jammu and Kashmir.
See, Junagadh was part of the Indian mainland. It did not border with Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
It had an overwhelming Hindu population.
That's right.
So, one fine morning, you had Junagadh taken over because the Diwan of Junagadh asked for it, for our assistance, and that's how the whole thing happened. And then we, of course, conducted the plebiscite.
That's right.
And in the plebiscite, there was an overwhelming support for wanting to. So the Nawab of Junagadh and their Diwan, etc., they all then went across to, they didn't want to be part of India, so they went to Pakistan. So actually, Junagadh on the ground did not pose too much of a problem, but it did in the United Nations, because what the Pakistanis along with the British did was that they obfuscated the issue of Junagadh.
Mm-hmm.
When the discussion started in the United Nations after India had made a reference, the discussion was under the Jammu and Kashmir question,
Mm-hmm.
right? But suddenly the agenda got changed to Indo-Pakistan disputes.
That's right.
We and our delegation in New York in the United Nations Security Council did take an exception to it, and we protested. But the Anglo-American bloc was so strong that it prevailed over us. And it not only prevailed over us on these technical issues, it also prevailed, rather tried to bamboozle their will in the name of a Security Council resolution under the Charter and Article 37, in which they could actually ramrod the resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they wanted to do. And they had made all the preparations. All the spade work had been done by the British and the Americans till we actually, जिसको कहते हैं ना, उनके मंसूबों पे पानी फिर गया, because we decided to seek an adjournment around the second week of
That's right.
February 1948. And then we came back to India, meaning our Indian delegation came back to India for consultations. And when they came back to India for consultations, then all kinds of back channels then started working. And then when we went back, then of course we come to ceasefire around 31st December
That
1948.
is
But that's
with
another
respect to
subject.
that of.
But you know, on the Junagadh thing, this is what they had wanted to do. So they would bring this up. They would bring up Hyderabad
That is it.
in the United Nations again and again. So this Anglo-American influence on the Security Council members was very insidious, and seemingly they would talk about all the noble sentiments which you cannot dispute, but in fact at the back of it, what their intention was to completely have a stranglehold on what they wanted India forced to be done.
That's
And
right.
obviously it suited Pakistan.
That's right. Sir, in fact, in case of Junagadh and in fact in case of Hyderabad, and in fact it was a success for that of the Indian forte, because it was being astutely dealt by that of by Home Minister then, in fact by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and his secretary B.P. Menon, who played a very crucial role, in fact, in stitching all these particular 565 nations into one. So, in fact, in one particular forte, which actually they failed, or in fact, it was because dealt in a very different way, or not that in a proper way, that was Jammu and Kashmir, which I am again going to come. But as far as Hyderabad is concerned, it was a very brutal way, in fact, actually we dealt with, and I think that was very right. What is your comment on the Hyderabad, takeover issue?
No, the Hyderabad takeover was not a brutal takeover. It was a police action, and it was really badly delayed.
Jain Chaudhary was there, in fact. He slapped it up.
Yes. But the fact of the matter is that it was delayed. The action should have come much earlier.
That's right.
Mountbatten would not allow it till he was there, right? So there would be rounds and rounds of parleys, and nothing much would come out of it. And the government of India, especially in the Ministry of States, would have to then go on conceding ground, and that's why the whole thing was delayed. The moment I think the Indians got a chance to do it, which was in the second week of September of 1948, we did it, and it was a very clinical, swift, small, short operation,
Absolutely.
and which, as I said, should have taken place a little earlier.
That's right. Why I called it brutal? Because the Indian Army chief landed up, and in fact ultimately, it was being closed, and in fact that was the very tacit way of doing it. And though in fact in Junagadh there were a lot of confabulations between that of the Indian side and also of their side, their forces coming in, I mean the Junagadh princely states forces and also Indian, taking the actions. But what went wrong with that of Jammu and Kashmir? Was it that of first of all, the standstill agreement, which actually was being done by that of the Hari Singh, and also because of that of some kind of a misunderstanding and misconceived notions with that of the Indian leadership, and the tactical game played by Jinnah?
No, it's a very, very funny war which actually took place between India and Pakistan. Imagine a scenario where the commanders in chief of the Indian Army and the Pakistan Army are British.
Absolutely.
Now, if you are British and you are picking up the phone and talking to each other, the British High Commission in Delhi and the British High Commission in Karachi and their deputy high commissioners in Lahore and Peshawar, they are speaking to each other. They are speaking to the Pakistani High Command in Rawalpindi. Our chaps are speaking to our army headquarters in New Delhi. So it was a free flow of information, meaning the Pakistan army guys, the top level guys, would know what we were doing, and we would know what they were doing in the sense of the army. But the main thing was that the British wanted this particular war to go in a particular way. So they had the British army chiefs Then there was a Supreme Commander, who was again a British. And then there was Whitehall in London, which is the British administration.
Absolutely.
So they were the ones who had the handle, right? If they wanted to close the tap with regard to petrol, which drives the army, they would do that immediately. And they did it. Exert pressure. If they wanted to stop the flow of ammunition, they would do that,
That's right.
right? By denying it to you.
Absolutely.
If they did not want any particular area to come back to India, which India had already lost in the first flush of invasion by either the rebels or the tribesmen, then they would not send the forces there.
That's right.
They would delay it. So it was a very strange kind of a war which was fought, where the Governor General of India, the first Governor General of India, who was a British, became the chief of the Defence Committee. Now, the moment you're chief of the Defence Committee and the war is on, you're privy to everything. You're reporting to London.
That's right.
Right? And that's what he did. I mean, the documents show that. So, we obviously had just, got our independence. We were really not experienced enough. We did not have a good setup of Indian diplomats who were experienced in the statecraft of diplomacy. Our army personnel were at a much lower level in terms of seniority, so they did not have that kind of exposure and the decision-making capacity for them to take decisions. Our political leadership, obviously, what they would talk and decide immediately was shared, through the British channels here, through their High Commission, to their High Commission in Pakistan, who would share it to the army headquarters in Rawalpindi. So the flow of information was also such that it did not actually lead to an advantage which India could gain. Rather, it was the other way around. We were disadvantaged, and we were disadvantaged by our inexperience. We were disadvantaged by complete British perfidy. We were disadvantaged by a world opinion which was being managed against us by the Anglo-American bloc.
Absolutely, sir. So, taking the cue from that, do you think that the standstill agreement, that is, one of the clause which actually has been put, that whether you remain as an independent, actually as a body, and after that you have a choice of either joining India or Pakistan. That was one of the major reasons. In fact, the delay in the accession to the Indian part, the dominion. That
No, as I told you, the main problem was that initially Raja Hari Singh he thought that Jammu and Kashmir would be an
Switzerland of the East.
Yes. Then when he realized that there are chances that Jammu and Kashmir may have to align with Pakistan, then he started thinking in terms of aligning with India. And when he wanted to align with India, his Achilles heel proved to be Sheikh Abdullah and therefore Nehru, because both of them were in tandem. And Gandhi was also not supportive of any other thing but for Sheikh Abdullah to be brought to power. And Hari Singh knew that once he comes to power, Hari Singh would be completely sidelined. And of course, Nehru was leveraging, as I said, unless Sheikh Abdullah is brought into power, they would not come to Jammu and Kashmir's rescue. So, all these things led to a delay, and Pakistan, at the behest of Britain, decided to just move in their tribesmen here.
That's
and
right.
They obviously knew that the top brasses in the Indian army were British.
That's right. So, in fact, in this point, I have read one chapter of your book that, you said that Nehru had a very European way of understanding that of the communalism and also that of the secular aspects. So was it a factor in this case also, in fact, dealing with Jammu and Kashmir?
You see, what was Nehru's strategy? And believe you me, Nehru's strategy was not wrong. In a way, it was quite a good strategy because that is what troubled the Anglo-American the most in the United Nations. Because he took the plea that, look, for us, the valley, you see, is controlled by Sheikh Abdullah. And he's a Muslim, but he's a congressman. So we are secular guys and we laying claim to it. So on the one side, when it is coming to the ascertaining the will of the people, he had a solid argument that look, he's there, his party is there, and his party, the National Conference, counts for a lot. And on the other side, he's saying that, we are going to go ahead with plebiscite, we are going to do this, that, but in a different sort of way. He wanted first to form a government through election. And that government, which is obviously going to be then a popular government, will then hold the plebiscite and you can have the observers. Now, you see, this kind of a strategy which Nehru followed much against the world opinion, still managed to hold on. Otherwise, those guys, whether they were the Canadians, whether they were Belgians or Australians or of course Britain and America, they would have really ridden roughshod and declared us pariahs.
Absolutely. So one thing, in fact, I would like to ask, there is actually the relationship between on this aspect with that of the Home Minister and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and with Nehru. There was a lot of strife, in between them while dealing with that of the Kashmir. A lot of people have the opinion that if probably, in fact, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel would have dealt, then in fact he would have solved how it was being solved in Hyderabad or in fact in Junagadh. And there was a strife wherein in fact he opposed that Nehru declaring it part of the taking it up with the UN. So what is your opinion on that? In fact, relating to that.
Look, there was.
I'm just interrupting. I mean that whether Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the way he dealt with Hyderabad and Junagadh, if he would have been given a free hand, he would have dealt much better. In fact, in Jammu and Kashmir.
I really don't know what would have happened at that particular point in time because. But one thing I can say, and that is that you can have a difference of opinion, right? But the kind of government that India has, it is a joint responsibility of the cabinet.
That's right.
So if the cabinet has taken a decision, you are equally responsible for
the
the
Home Ministry
decision
is a part of it.
which the cabinet takes. So on one side, you should have resigned if you were really not au fait or you didn't go along with that decision. It was there for you to resign. But not resigning and saying that you disagree is almost like shirking a bit of your responsibility.
I understand. So actually, what was Vallabhbhai Patel's idea of, he actually opposed it, taking this up with the UN, this Kashmir issue. What was his ideation behind that? Why did he oppose?
It was the joint responsibility of the Indian cabinet to make a reference to the United Nations. He was a party to that decision.
Okay.
He was a party to that
Absolutely.
decision. So again, the same thing. I mean, his private secretary writes that when Nehru was to make the broadcast saying that we are going to the United Nations, then he sent his private secretary to go and stop him from making the PoK broadcast. But you see, these are all counterfactuals.
Okay.
My feeling is that the whole Indian cabinet, including Patel, um, did whatever best they could for our country at that particular point in time. Because I don't think so there's anyone in India who will question the patriotism
Absolutely.
of our nationalist leaders then. And they all did what they could do best in the interest of our country. Yes, it's very easy in hindsight to pass judgments,
That's right.
and that we are liable to do it once in a while. But we should not lose sight of the fact that things must have been very, very challenging in the chaotic times post-partition.